Are you making use of social media's short shelf life? Now, before I begin, I want to give full credit to this episode, this video and this podcast episode to Chris McCluckie. You'll find Chris over in Dan Meredith's Facebook group, which is Coffee with Dan, and Chris does all the social media images for Dan Meredith. Now, there's a good reason Dan has him doing the social media images. One, Chris is very, very talented with Photoshop. He can do almost anything with Photoshop, or even Canva for that matter. But he's also got a wicked and sick sense of humour sometimes, and it's very rare if you find Chris in your newsfeed. It's very rare that you'll actually scroll past. He'll usually make you laugh, he'll make you think, but he will stop you mid-scroll. He won't be like one of those people where you're just scrolling through the newsfeed and you're not paying much attention to it. When you come upon one of Chris's images, I'm sure you will stop in your tracks. Now, Chris had mentioned in one of his podcast episodes about the short shelf life of social media. Now, as you're probably well aware, if I take this video over to Twitter, it'll probably be only on the newsfeed for a couple of seconds. If I take it over to Facebook, again, I'd probably be lucky if I got a couple of days out of it before it would completely disappear. Now, social media is like a huge conveyor belt. Stuff that you put on right now is going to move further away from you. It's going to move further down someone's newsfeed, but it's going to disappear into oblivion. You know, if you go to someone's Facebook page, how far would you normally scroll through their content? You'd probably maybe go through maybe the first 10 posts, 20 posts, if that. Anything beyond that and you're probably a stalker, or there's something wrong with you if you are looking that far into somebody's timeline. Now, as I said, because people aren't going to go too far into your timeline, and because that content is constantly being refreshed, what that means is, as Chris said, you can take off maybe some pieces of content that maybe you made a couple of weeks ago that totally flopped, that didn't get anyone's attention. You can take it back, you can dust it off, and you can renew it and reuse it. So what you can do is you could maybe change, if it was something like simple like maybe a quote image or something like that, what you can do is you can maybe change the font. Maybe the font wasn't good enough, maybe it was too difficult to read and that's why somebody scrolled past it. Have a look at maybe changing the font, make it more legible, maybe make the letters larger, or maybe swap out the background. You know, maybe the background image wasn't striking enough. Maybe if you change the background image, it might be a little bit better. But what you can do then is you can take that social media image and then you can put it back on the newsfeed. And again, because most people probably didn't pay attention to it the first time, it's probably going to be seen as new content. And really, when you think about it, how many of us actually remember what somebody posted on Facebook? Unless maybe it was a huge written post, but images and stuff like that, it's very rare that you'll actually remember somebody's quote or something that they had put up a couple of days or a couple of weeks back. So what you can do then, as I said, you can take your old content and you can reuse it, rejig it, change the fonts, change the background images or the layouts or whatever, and put it back out there again, which is a good thing in that, you know, a lot of people, social media is just a kind of big burden for them because they're constantly creating more and more content. You know, it does put a lot of people off it, where if you have this kind of idea in your head now, what you can actually do is reuse that content over and over again. So you need kind of less time coming up with original ideas. You can just simply use what you already have out there. Now, what you can also do, if you want to, maybe as a quick kind of time saver, I use Pablo from time to time to do my social media images, but you can also use maybe something like Stencil or something like that for creating your image. Now, what you can do is, if I wanted to make a couple of versions of a social media image in Pablo, as I said, what I can do is I can go over there today. If I have a nice quote, I can make 3 or 4 versions of that all in one go, and I can download them to my desktop. I can save them to a folder, so I could have 4 different variations of my quote image. Again, different backgrounds, different fonts, different layouts, just trying out different things. And rather than going back and creating that 4 times at 4 different times, do it all now in one go. So download all that content and put it into a folder for future use. So what you can do is you can take the first variation of your social media image, post it today, but in a couple of weeks time what you can do is you can go back to your folder where you have saved the second, the third, maybe the 4th variation of that image, and then you can pull that out and then you can throw it back out in your timeline. So it just means you're not going back to Pablo or Stencil or whatever, or Canva, creating the images over and over again. Kind of do them all in one go, make variations of them and then save them and then put them in that folder for future use. So you will find sometimes when you get too busy, you don't have time to go over to social media. It's very easy just to have that folder at hand, and then you can just pull all that content out as you need it. So maybe try and create a couple of variations of that quote today, or that social media image, and again, save it to your desktop or whatever, but you have that then for future use, because as I said, who is really going to remember your quotes or whatever? It's very, very rare that anybody really will. So do that. Now, another thing you could do too is, if you have maybe a social media image that has maybe 2 or 3 different pieces of advice. So for example, sometimes I might quote or might put out a piece of content that might have maybe 2 or 3 tips on it. Now again, these are probably just short tips that I can actually squeeze in on an image, but there's no reason why you can't take that image down and break it down into 3 pieces of content. So you can have the one then with 3 tips on it, but then you can have 3 additional ones which could have the first tip on it, another image which have the second tip on it, another image which has the third tip on it. So again, what you're doing is you're reusing that content, you're changing it a little bit, and you're getting more use out of it. Again, if you want to, you could maybe do all that social media stuff in one sitting and save all the variations of it to that folder, and then you could use it in the future. So as Chris said, you know, sometimes the shelf life of social media can be a pain in the butt because you're creating content constantly over and over again. But rather than you kind of struggling for new ideas all the time, go back to content that you have done already. Again, freshen up, change fonts, change backgrounds, change layouts, change something about, even change the wording of it. Maybe that quote that you've written down is a little bit weak, and now when you look at it again, you can see it in a better light with fresher eyes, and you might think of something catchier or something more profound that you can change that to. So have a look at doing that today, and it will make your life a lot easier. And again, as I said, if you have maybe a folder set up, do all the content maybe in one sitting, save it all there, and then you can put it all into something like Buffer or something like that that can drip feed that content over the next couple of days and the next couple of weeks. So I hope you found today's episode helpful. Again, I want to give full credit to Chris McCluckie, which is a wonderful idea for social media, and if you do have a chance to follow Chris, head over to Dan and follow him, because he does wonderful content, and you will laugh at some of the stuff he does put out. You will realise why he gets as much credit as he does, because he is definitely gifted at what he does. So head over to Dan Meredith's group, follow Chris, and see what he does. Now, as always, if you'd like to find out where this content is going, or you'd like to find out a little bit more about me, do a search for WriteCome. That's WriteCome.com, and you'll find the content all over the web. Some of it's even reused content that I have freshened up and reposted again. So as I said, do a search for WriteCome, iTunes, Yahoo, Google, whatever your search engine you're using. I am on most platforms. And if you'd like to find the site, again, go for WriteCome, WriteCome.com, and head on over there. Now at the moment we have a great free report which is called Words to Wealth, and then I'm going to show you 10 different ways you can make money from home with your keyboard. So if you'd like to head on over, download the free report, and let me know how you get on with it, and I'm sure you'll find one of the things will be really, really helpful for you to make money from home. So as always, have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.